Okay, so everything's being recorded now. A couple of the major things that I saw in the assignment were, relatively, you guys all did a great job. Thank you very much for doing it. Anybody who only submitted the Revit model, one thing I would say is that it would be great in future iterations if I've asked you to submit a Revit model and also asked you to submit the PDFs, that if you've just submitted the Revit model for whatever reason, make sure you've got your sheets set up in the Revit file. So part of the course, part of the idea of the assessments is to build these sheets, because ultimately in your future professions and your future jobs, you're going to need to build these sheets out. So it'd be really great to see that on future assignments. That was one big thing, we'll say, for anybody who is just submitting Revit assignments. I do appreciate that people had trouble doing the PDF. So if you did have trouble doing that, then I appreciate you sent over the .rvt file. But in future iterations, it'd be great to see these sheet files as well. So what should I start with? Let's go through the whole assignment here first. So this is just the reference set, right? So one thing that, oh, you know what? Let's do this first. One thing that I did notice was you'll see on my screen here, the sheet view, the view on the sheet rather, this 3D view. And this may be my fault. I might not have shown this, but I didn't really take off marks for this. So I'll see if, why don't I show you what I'm talking about right now? A lot of us had a little 3D title for this. It's really great to just not see anything for a 3D view on your title sheet explicitly, just the title sheet. And how you do that is a lot of us had something like this, right? And usually what will happen is it's just supposed to be representation of the project. So we keep title sheets. We usually have an image of the building on the first title page, just because it will give the contractor, it gives the client, it gives you, when you open the first drawing in a set of drawings, you immediately know I'm looking at the right set of drawings. So imagine you're a contractor, you're doing work on 15 different jobs. As silly as this sounds, it is a good cue just to say, oh, I'm looking at the right set of drawings. So super minor thing. I wanted to see if everybody saw this. It was super minor, but if we just click on our view itself, and we can actually turn this off and just set it to no title, and then it's gone. Super minor thing. I don't think I took marks off for that.
Sorry, we can see your screen.
I know, Bassi. Thank you. Sorry, my bad. Thank you. You see it now?
Yeah, I can see now.
Okay, thanks again, Bessie. Thanks, guys. It's been a busy night last night with a little baby around. Not to excuse my behavior here. So one thing we would see normally is just this first title page, right? So we all know what a title page looks like, but this is for the contractor. It's for us. Just to remember, this is our project. So super minor thing. If we click on the view, a lot of us had this title no line or title with line. Like I said, I didn't take marks off for this. I just thought it might be helpful for us to see if you don't want this little funny title here on our title view, we can actually just click on the view itself, come over here to the type selector tool, click the drop down, and you can hit that no title, and it just disappears. It's not gone, it's just gone off of the drawing. So that was one thing that I noticed that super minor, but like 90% of the class, and maybe that's on me, so I didn't take marks off for that. One thing, again, relatively minor, but important in the context of building a drawing set, is being mindful of our drawing numbers. So I did notice that many of us took the effort to change the drawing number. So the sheet numbers are all here, A00 all the way through A700. I want us to be mindful of making sure we update those drawing numbers. So if you didn't do that, you lost a quarter of a mark. So I tried to be very generous with this type of thing. So a quarter of a mark, which works out to 1 mark out of 100. So doing my best here, make sure we've got the drawing numbers all set up properly. Another one is, go back to our jam here. Plans, relatively good. Plans were relatively well performed. I think that, thank you for that. I think you guys all did a great job on the plans. The one minor thing would be, again, this is just to improve legibility. I can even see my own legibility here. I'd be taking marks off myself. To improve legibility, we've got this little section marker here, right? Comes all the way across. Relatively minor performance here, but if we want to kind of cut these, just to make sure we all know how to do this, if I jump to my basement floor level, come in here, and there's this little handy dandy Harry Potter lightning bolt here, and this is a break line, and the break line essentially breaks the symbol here. And if I click this again, it's going to turn it back on. But you can see here how oftentimes what will happen is it can be really confusing for a contractor to figure out, where is this dimension string actually being placed if I've got this break line, excuse me, this section marker in here. And a handy way to kind of eliminate that is we can actually just go ahead and click on the section marker and click this. And click that little Harry Potter lightning bolt. Same thing down here, Harry Potter lightning bolt. And now your section is still intact. We can see everything in the section. All it's done is changed the symbol. So the symbol now is just, we'll call it split, but everything within the section is still correct. So if you then go ahead, you can actually click on the section itself, and you can modify these little drags here if you want to. You can kind of move them completely outside of the building. But yeah, again, super minor thing, but making sure we all know how to use that tool. You do have to do it in each view. So if I remember correctly, should check that. Yeah, you got to do it in each view. So unfortunately, this is what's called a view specific situation. The section will show up in every view, but you'll have to break that break line in each view. Yeah, why don't I jump to, so I'm going to jump quickly to the parapet, tool here, because the way that I typically do it, and this is not right or wrong, is I know in Obasi you were, just before the exam there, you had some great questions about this, and Jacob did cover it in his video, but I found it, his version was a little bit, how do I say this? He had to do a lot of gymnastics to get to the correct result. So I think that can happen, but if you check out his video, he has to flip the whole profile of the parapet assembly at the top. And I'm just going to show you a version where we don't necessarily have to do that. So I'll do two versions. The first is the version that I typically use, and I'm just going to jump to 3D here, pull out my section box. And if we remember, we've got our cool little wall sweep here, right? So our wall sweep being one of the tools. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that real quick. I jump up to architecture, and the way that I like to do it is just so I can see it is wall sweep. And you can see in my type selector, I've only got the cornice. If you did use the cornice that was in the kind of default one for your assignment, that's great. I appreciate you guys using the tool. And then if you upgraded it to the one that was on Blackboard, then you got some extra marks for that. So let's do cornice here. This is just my standard one. If we just kind of hover over the top of the wall, we can start to see kind of ghost of what's there. And if we go ahead and click once and click twice on the second wall here, we can see that it's actually going to give us a little miter. It's going to cut that the edge of this parapet, and keep coming here. I got a second one, come around, go to the third one, all the way around to the final side here, and come back to our modify, and it should just populate with our little cornice parapet here. So this is one way to do it. If I was to jump to my wall sections now, so if I jump to my wall sections, we'll see sections. Overall building section, actually do masonry. That's okay. That's the overall one. But what you'll see is this little wall sweep emerge. And it's the dilemma with this one, which I appreciate and we'll go through today, is that it's hard to manipulate this one. I can flip it. It's not really all that useful for us, right? So if I can flip this up and down, not really useful for us. But for the purposes of what I was trying to explain, I just wanted us to have a little wall sweep on the top of this wall. Um, However, there is another way to do it. Let's do that right now. So I'm going to go back into 3D and just delete that whole thing. And if we jump back to our wall section here, you'll see that that's gone, right? So there's no wall sweep at the top of our wall right now. And I'm going to try and slow this down, but feel free to review the recording once this is done. So we can actually add the wall sweep to our wall type. I hesitate to do this because typically your parapets can change. I like to keep them separate. And this will add complexity to your EW1 wall type. But I realize my thin lines is currently off. Back on there. So if I click on the wall itself, if we remember, we want to edit the wall type here. So that's the first thing we're going to want to click on in the type selector tool. And this is how we're going to get to the parapet here. So edit type, click that, and it's up to you if you want to duplicate it just to test this out. But the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to jump into structure. If you remember the structure edit, and click that. And now it's a menu. But what we need to do is we actually want to see in the section view what's happening at the top of the wall. So we want to see that little wall sweep, that little cornice at the top. How do we do that? We actually, to jump over here, there's this little preview button at the bottom left of this little menu. Hit that preview button, and you'll see first step, we've got the floor plan. So if we remember, we can modify anything within our structure, the thickness, the material, the function, and that's going to update what's happening in our little section preview here. The section preview, we can zoom in, we can pan, just to see what's going on as a kind of first idea about what this wall is going to look like. Those green lines are our core boundaries, right? So our core boundaries being here. Just to review this super quick. Now, the complicated part is in order to get a wall sweep into this wall type, we actually need to change this little handy view. I need to drop this down and change it to section. So before I do that, you'll see the modify vertical structure and then bracket section preview only. And what we're looking for here is you can see this sweeps button and it's grayed out. I can't click on it. I can't do anything. That can be really frustrating. And you have to just be careful because it says section preview only. And that's not really clear where that is. It doesn't say what the preview is. In fact, the preview is this down here, view, floor plan. Instead, we'll change it to section. And you'll see now that these have all been updated. So now you can see that we've got some additional tools that we can use as part of the Revit interface. So the parapet cap, the cap that we were using, that little cornice there, is actually in fact a sweep. So that was why I was using the wall sweep. I find it probably the most straightforward way to do it inside of Revit. However, if you'd like to change it in every wall type for your EW1 brick wall with CMU backup, what we can do is hit that little sweeps button. Let's click that. And now we're going to have to add a profile. So you can see it's a little bit, there's a lot going on here. So it gives us a whole host of profile. What's the material? What's the distance? Where is it from? What's the orientation, side, all these things. And I'll show you what that looks like. So let's just go ahead and add, whoops, let's delete that. Let's add let's add this one for now. This is just the default profile. And why don't we just go ahead and I'm just going to hit apply and show you guys what this looks like. So I'm going to hit apply. Let's see what the default one looks like. Hit OK, and you'll see it's already populated at the base of the wall, right? So in our little preview here on the right. So I won't be able to touch it But if I go over here, hit OK, we'll see we've got this new bit. This new bit is now existing here. So before I go any further, I'm going to come back into the full Revit interface and show you guys what this wall now looks like. So you don't have to follow along here, but I do want to show you what's happening. So if I hit OK again, we're deep in the menus here, right? So you can see what's happened is every single wall type now has this wall sweep, and the location is at 0. So it's 0 level. If I jump to 3D, this is a 3D, I call it a follow me in SketchUp, but it is a on rail. It's on one rail. It's a sweep on one rail. So it's a sweep on one rail. And you can see here in 3D, we can see this nice little sweep. So this can be really useful for things like, if you really want to do additional detail in your walls, things at the base, things at maybe you got some nice little architectural detail somebody wants to get across in terms of a control joint is probably the most common one that I've used it for. So control joints in masonry systems. So one thing to do, you have to change the profile, but get the idea. Just so you can see that now EW1 has this sweep around every time we've got a wall. Really hard to get rid of, right? So that's why I like to teach the other one, because it's once the sweep is in here, you have to go all the way back into that tool that we were just using to get to these sweeps themselves. So I'm going to jump back into, click on the wall, edit type, going to jump all the way back into our structure. So we got to go edit structure and then sweeps. So just keep an eye. Oh, you know what? I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You can also pan in the section view. So if we come back to sweeps here, a couple things we can do. We can change the material. So our little 3-dot ellipses. We can change a material from, in this case, we've got a lift belt. You can change it to anything, right? Anything here. For us, it's probably going to be concrete. Let's just click that concrete, hit OK. Distance. So distance, we should see it update live in our little model here. So let's just see what this does. Hit 150 here, hit apply, and you can see here how distance, it's kind of unclear what distance is, but distance in this case is offset from the base. So the base in this case is our base is wherever our wall is starting. So that distance is, if I wanted to have it, at a set distance, I could say, let's call it 4,000, hit apply. You can see here, jumped all the way up. So what if we don't want it to have, to be from the base? What if we want it to be from the top? So sometimes, depending on what we're trying to draw, we're trying to convey in our drawings, instead of from base, we can do from the top. And you should see this, if I hit apply, it's you can see we get an error. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit cancel for us and go back to 0. Just make that distance 0, hit apply, and you'll see here in our preview here, that's now jumped up to the top, which is really where we would want to have our precast parapet cap at the top. And then orientation, we can see we got parallel to ground or perpendicular to face. So this is going to be a little bit difficult to see in this square version, but if I just hit parallel to ground, it's going to be the same thing. But we'll keep that perpendicular to face for now, hit apply. The side. So what if we actually want to have this on the inside of the wall, right? So we can actually just drop that down, hit interior, hit apply, and you'll see it. I don't want to say flip, that's not correct, but it is flipping to the interior side. You check out the preview here. It's now on the inside face of our overall wall assembly. Offset, so this is also going to offset from the side that we're looking at. So this can be really helpful if we're trying to place our precast sweep here. So let's give you an example. Let's do a 150 offset here. Might give me an error. No, it's okay. So I'm just gonna hit OK here and zoom in a little bit, but you'll see the offset 150. If I just jump to my little detail here, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. You can expand this. Can't expand the view. It's stuck in its old ways. But you can see this. This is 150 from the interior face to the inside face of that sweep. Again, this one's tough with the cube, excuse me, the square here. But if I hit that flip button, I don't think we're actually going to see anything. So it's going to flip perpendicular to face. So it's going to flip the actual geometry here. So I'm going to keep that not flipped. Setback, we won't do that. And then cuts wall. We do want it to cut the wall if it's in the way, so that's okay. And then just do me a favor, and the big change here is what we'd like to do is we want to use one of these other profiles. So if we jump back to our kind of first piece here, this profile, little drop down, we've got these profiles already in our drawings. If you don't, let me know, but you should be able to see these parapet types if you've loaded the family from Blackboard. So if you load the family from Blackboard, you should be able to see these. And you can, of course, load custom profiles, which is its own step, but I'll get there. So just as an example, we've got 300, 350, all the way down here. Let's just give it a shot. I know the actual profile cap we need to use is 750, but let's just try 450 here and hit apply, and we should see this little parapet cap emerge here. So it's in actual fact for us, we would love to see it on the exterior side. So let's make sure we do that. Hit apply. So you can see here the offset. Maybe we'll do, I think I've actually got it set to 0 in the precedent example, but if we set this to 25, you'll see that jump back. 25 being a little bit of a drip edge for us, drip edges being really important in construction, keeping the water off the building. So if I was going to flip this, you'll see the flip a little bit more clearly with this profile option. Hit apply. You'll see that it flips. Maybe not what we want, but definitely showing us an example here. So flip, hit apply. If I change the orientation parallel to ground here, nothing happens, right? So perpendicular to face, let's just leave that. Oh, you know what's going to happen? Here, let's do this. Parallel to ground, apply. And if I flip it, no, same thing. Offset, that looks good. But we can see here that our parapet cap maybe isn't quite big enough to cover the entirety of that back section of CMU. And likely we'd have a little bit of a wall at our parapet, even though this isn't likely the right assembly for the parapet, just for the purposes of demonstrating the exercise. We might need a little bit more to cover the inside edge here. So I'm going to change this parapet profile cap to 750. And let's see how far we can push it there. So you can see there, 750 all the way back. This can be really helpful for doing, you can see that you can place our parapet exactly where we want it in the wall versus my version that's a little loose. I like to do a lot of things in the detail phase of the drawing, but for us, what we can do is if you would like to keep it inside of our wall tool here, we can certainly do it that way. So I've already made it concrete. If I was going to change this from concrete to something else, we should see, why don't I change this to air, hit OK, hit apply, and you should see the material update immediately, right? So it went a little quick there, but you see here that this is now a solid block of color. If I jump back to this and make it concrete, we should see it come out as a, oops, as a concrete piece here. So hit apply, hit OK. Now it's concrete. Okay. So I'm just gonna quickly hit OK here so we can make sure that our wall all looks the right part. See here, our section view is still showing correctly. Hit OK. And now we can see that that wall section, the section parapet cap is showing up correctly in 3D. If we jump to our wall sections, our building sections, excuse me, we see that it's also there. So again, this can be really helpful for setting up very particular working drawings. So I want to make sure that we had that in our tool belt here for how we use Revit. The last thing that I wanted to touch on when it comes to these parapet caps is the actual setting up of the profile itself. This can be a little tough, I'll say a little tough. I'm going to jump back into edit type, jump into structure here, jump into sweeps. And let's zoom in a little bit. One thing I didn't mention is that you can have multiple sweeps. So you can have multiple sweeps in our wall section. This can also be helpful. So if I was to say add another, right, I can have more than one. So now I've got a wall sweep at the top and a wall sweep at the bottom. So maybe this is going to be, change it to a little soldier coursing here, right? Change this to, let's change this to what's above our windows, 4,500. Do that. Whoops. Change the offset. Maybe we want to give ourselves a little 10mm offset here. And this is literally just a nice little detail here of another wall sweep. We've got the wall sweep for our parapet cap, the most common one, but maybe you've got some additional wall sweeps that we want to use here. And this is just a little, what's it calling? This is a soldier course. It's not quite the correct vernacular here, but if I hit OK again, hit OK a third time, jump to 3D, and we should see this other little sweep here. So just a piece of, little extra detail, something to spruce up your D&D model if you really want to get into some of this detail here. So nice little sweeps can be really useful depending on what you're after. So edit type, I'm going to jump back in here. One last thing with the sweeps, and that is how do we actually load profiles. So I realize I've probably spent longer on this than I was planning on, but that's okay. It's good for you guys. So you might not see the profile that you want to use. And in that case, we want to load a profile. So if I hit that load profile, we might want to see we'd have to previously have built a profile that makes sense for us. And this is partially why I don't like I don't like getting into this because it's very complicated and very detailed for an intermediate level Revit class, but I'm happy to do it. I think that you guys are great, and I think you guys will appreciate some of these more advanced tools. So in this case, I've already got a parapet profile set up. So this was the example that Jacob had given us. So what I'll do is before I do that, I'm going to open up the Revit family, but I just want us to, if you were wondering, it is its own family for the profile. If you got stuck on any instance where you're like, where is the profile? You have to build that profile before you can get it into the model. So the profile is its own family. It's a separate entity. And so instead of doing it this way, and I hit cancel here real quick. Guess I've got to find where that profile lives. Give me 1 second here. It's going to be in my handy dandy Humber Fall 252. And we've got midterm. Oh, whoops. Midterm. Where's my practice? Aha, this is my one here. So there were some issues with this parapet profile that I've already gone ahead and fixed, but I'll show you what that looks like super quick here. So if I'm actually gonna, why don't I open it up inside the Revit interface here? So file, open, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure I'm opening a family. So it's not a model, it's a family. So let's make sure we do that. And well, I already know that it's here. Parapet profile. So Parapet profile, we've got this little preview here. It's going to give us this little, well, it's a strange little profile, but that's okay. Hit open. Gonna upgrade the model real quick. This is literally just a loop. It's a loop of lines that is telling Revit, what would you like me to extrude through the kind of Play-Doh mold? What would you like me to sweep along a path? So if I just click on one of these, this is just a line. So you can see on our type selector, this is just a line. It's a profile line. Um, and the reason I wanted to do this is because, for instance, I know that in the example from the practice for the midterm, I believe, or I misspeak, I believe that unfortunately Jacob's version, I think, is actually the, oh, wrong one, is actually going to be flipped. Oh, he's done. Never mind. I don't have it. So he's actually had it flipped. So if you had this one, it may have looked something like this. And that was causing some issues for us. So it means that you have to, it doesn't harm the model, it just makes it a couple extra steps. So what I had gone ahead and done was I actually flipped this before I inserted it inside the Revit model, so we can have it just be in the right orientation before we get the profile in here. So that being said, we want to make sure that we've got, maybe we make some adjustments. Let's make this 175. Make this 150. Oh, right. Make this 150. Something like this. Again, you can build whatever profile you want. This is just, it has to be a closed loop. It's got to be done using profile lines in a profile family. And then we're going to save it. I'm going to save it somewhere smart so that I know where my family lives. I'll save it here. Whoops. Advised. And you can go ahead and close that. And now jumping back into our nice little Revit wall family here, jump into structure, go to sweeps, zoom in a little bit actually, go to sweeps, and then we're going to load a profile. So here we can see we've got a bunch of profiles already preloaded inside of this model, mostly, profile stair nosings, handrails, uh, these brick soldier courses. The new ones for us are really going to be these parapet cap precast, which you should have been able to load with the model provided on Blackboard. However, say we want to load a new profile. Two ways you can do it. You can use the load profile tool. So if I hit this little load profile, we got this load profile revised. And if I just go ahead and hit open here, we can see a little preview, hit open. And so I hit load profile, nothing's happened, right? So I find Revit can be a little bit confusing with this. So what do you mean? What do you mean? Like I just loaded it. What's going on? So what it's doing is it's loading it in the background. So chances are, if I'm going to add a new one here, I should see, I've already forgotten what I called it, Parapet profile revised here. So careful with that, because now it's in the model, but it didn't really show you that you loaded anything, right? There was no menu that said everything's cool. But just because I know in Obasi you'd asked last, I guess 3 weeks ago now, just before the practice midterm there, how to do this, and I apologize we didn't quite get to it. But Parapet profile revised, click this and hit apply, and we should see this new profile emerge. So in fact, it's on the wrong side, but that's okay. So a couple extra things we can do here. If we want to make it at the top, let's do that. We can see here that that's now blue highlighted. It's at the top. Maybe we want to pop it out a little bit. Maybe we want to maybe 25 millimeter pop out here. So, starting to look pretty good. I think in the example that was provided for the practice midterm, what I noticed what was happening is, in fact, it was flipped. And I'll just show you what that looks like. If I hit apply, right, we've got two wall sweeps overlapping here. So that's okay. Hit cancel. I will for now. I'm going to just delete this one. So the way that you delete these profiles, so you can actually just click in the kind of row here and hit delete. Let's flip this, hit apply, and you'll see it's flipping. It's not flipping the way that I want it to flip. So that's annoying, right? So what do I want to do instead? I think this is going to work. No. So the easiest way to do this is to, oh, this is why. Okay, this is why I'm thinking about this. Is the easiest way to do this is to go into your profile if you would like to flip it and just flip the profile in the orientation that you want it to be. So for us right now, I know the way that Jacob had done it in his tutorial was to actually, which I find a little bit tedious, but I'll show you how I would do it if we actually want that to face the other way. And if we do that, we're going to actually change this to the interior side, hit apply. You can see how it's literally flipped. And then you would actually offset it to the dimension of the wall, which is, I think, for us 748. Hit apply. I'm going the wrong way. So this is what I was saying about I hit negative 748. We've now got this exterior facing profile. That's a lot of extra steps for us. So to simplify things, what you could do is just modify the original profile family instead of having all these extra offset tools. So what I'll do super quick here is I'll just leave this at 0, hit apply, and I'll show you real quick how you're going to modify that. So let's hit OK here, hit cancel, and what we're going to do is we're going to open up, we're going to reopen. So I'm going to reopen that little profile revised, and I'm gonna mirror the whole thing. So right now it's on the wrong side. I'm gonna go ahead and mirror the axis. So select everything, mirror. I'm gonna make sure the copy box is off. Make it go the other way. Load into project. Now should actually let's make sure we save this. Make sure we save this. I'll save. Now we should see, oh, I'm gonna have to redo this. Okay, so now we should see an updated version of our sweep. So why don't I go ahead and delete this, toast, add a new one, my revised, hit apply, set to top. Make sure this is set to 0. Go to top. Oh, I did the wrong one. Top. Bye. So you see here, now we've got that sweep in the right location without having to do any of these gymnastics of getting the profile sweep all the way out. I don't know. I feel like this way is a better way to do it rather than having all those extra steps, the negative 748. This is a safe way to do it, better way to do it, in my opinion. So I know that was a lot. You guys got the recording. Sweeps are like, I would say you use them for parapets. You might use them for these little detail elements. Parapets is going to be the main one. How about that? Parapets is going to be the main one in any ICI construction. I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. Hit OK again. Get all the way out here. So what's nice about these versions of our parapet wall sweeps is that it's just kind of done, which is cool. So if I was, for instance, to draw a new wall, right? I've just drawn a new wall from scratch. All of those sweeps are built into the wall. So I haven't done any extra work. It's just set in. One thing you can do is you can actually modify the location of the sweep. Maybe you've got something that you want to change. You can see I just dragged this little drag button here and drag and pull it. Probably not going to use that tool for a lot of things other than that parapet cap. Cool. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful. There's a couple other things that I wanted to make sure I cover when it comes to the assignment. So why don't I jump back into our little review here of just the take up. Oh, that reminds me, there's one other thing I want to go over. If you missed the, tagging, it's really important to tag the annotations in our drawing. So making sure we got our room tags, our wall tags, window tags, making sure that those annotations are showing up correctly and are legible. So the legibility thing is huge. Try your best not to have things overlap. So do your best to have them not overlap. Um, I did notice a lot of us, I don't know if it was just an issue of time or what it was for the assignment, but make sure we tag things like our wall types in our wall sections. So EW2 here, EW1, just can be helpful for a contractor to make sure that they're looking at the right section, making sure they got the right wall type, what have you. Normally, we would also tag the roofs, but we didn't have a roof tag, so I left that out of the assignment. Um, Okay, one thing I noticed, I know Inobasi, sorry, I keep calling back to Inobasi, had a question about this on the midterm exam, and this was totally fair. This is a fair comment, criticism, is that when it comes to setting up our roof slopes, so we know what the roof slope is, but the default setting inside of Revit is to use units that are like it's like 20 over 1,000. So I'll go ahead and I'll just give a quick explanation of how to kind of modify that because I felt like this is just minor thing. I did not take marks off for this at all. If you had the symbol for slopes in here, kudos, love it, great job. I did notice that the units, I jumped to the roof level here. Where is my roof? Roof, where did you go, roof? So if I double click, get inside of my activated view here, the spot slopes. So spot slopes here, we've got percentage, and typically the default here is actually jumping down here to units format. It is rise. So rise over 1,000 millimeters. And that's going to do this real quick so you can see what it looks like. This is not the convention in the office. It's not the convention in real life. Uh, it's the same thing as a percentage, but it just looks complicated, right? So 19.75 over 1,000. This is kind of how we might do rise over run for slopes on a roof in residential design. Maybe you might see a 4 to 12 slope or a 3 to 12 slope. But for us in ICI construction, it's going to be better for us to show the percentages. So, and the way that we do that, I did it real quick there, but the way that we do that, excuse me, is we click on the symbol itself. So we click on the symbol, and you should see in our type selector tool, got a little spot slopes piece here. We can hit that edit type. Just jump down here to our primary units, and we've got primary units down here. Click that box, and what we can do is we can change the units from rise over 1,000 to percentage. And if you didn't do that, I did not take off marks, I promise. It's just a way to kind of change this into percentage. This is what we want to see. Click percentage. That's going to do it across every single annotation we've got that shows a roof slope. So if I hit OK, hit OK again, and that's going to, oh, it's not showing me my percent. Where's my percent? Oh, unit symbol. So make sure we got our little percent there for unit symbol. And now we got a percentage here. And that's really it. That's done. So rad. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to jump back to our little assignment here and make sure we've got just with the time we've got left. One thing I noticed was, and this is likely on me. I think I may have done it in the final tutorial just before the assignment was kind of at the due date here. Is on our interior views. Anybody who used different tables, I love it. It's a great demonstration of the tool. Don't worry about that. All I want you to do is make sure that we've got the right view setup. So if you used a different table set, do your best to use the right ones. But if you didn't, I did not take marks off for that because that would be silly. But a couple of these views, I know when you're in the first throes of getting these views onto sheets, it can be challenging to get the right size of view, right? So when you first throw these on sheets, they're usually like half the size of what's shown here. So I can't remember if I did this. Apologies for that. But let's jump to our little 3D view renderings. And what you'll see if I click on my view here, you'll see inside of my modify viewports up here at the very top, a little size crop. And the size crop is really letting me choose how big or small I want to make this image. So this can be really helpful for things like presentation documents, or, you've got a, no different than this class. If you've got a class where you need to put some views on sheets, if I click on this view, I can just click on this little size crop button, and it's going to say to me, would you like to change the field of view, or would you like to change the scale, the locked proportions of the view? For us, we're going to do that. Scale, locked proportions. It's not as intuitive as some other presentation software, I would say, because now I've kind of got to guess how wide I want the drawing to be. So if I just change this to, let's call it half, 325, you'll see that it's going to lock in, right? So it's going to snap back to 650. You'll see this height jump as well. So it's going to keep the proportions of the view, but why don't I just do 250 here, or sorry, let's do 300 as a check, hit apply, and you'll see the size of that view change immediately, right? Same goes for any of these other views. You can't do more than one at the same time. Yeah, you can't do more than one at the same time, which is kind of annoying, but they are separate views. So size crop, same thing, make this, 150, hit apply. Whoops, so you can see there that Revit has gone ahead and cropped my view, right? So slightly different version, size crop. So in this case, it's changing the field of view rather than the scale. So make sure we've got that right button. I'll show you what that looks like again. If I've got the field of view set up and I hit apply, we can see that it's really cropping the overall view. And that's not really what we want. We kind of want to get to, I'm going to undo that. We want to get to a size, overall size of scale. A little 150 here, hit apply. It's going to shrink my whole view, right? Just to give you an idea, this is one of the tools we can use to increase or decrease the size of these 3D views here. I'll jump back in here and just double this again, make it 300. Hit apply. Whoops, same thing. So it jumps back to field of view every time. So let's make sure we've got that 300 correct. This one was 600, I think. Hit apply, something like that. But yeah, I know that I noticed a couple projects, that's potentially on me, but that's how you use that tool. But yeah, I think you guys all did a great job on the assignment. I think one other thing, just because I'm looking at it right now, is the window schedule. So if I jump to our window schedule here, one thing I noticed was a number of people, they just missed a small step, super small step, and that was the itemize every instance kind of checkbox. And if you remember from our little schedule class, I jump to window schedules here and jump into, I think it's going to be sorting and grouping. Oh, sorting and grouping, here it is. So itemize every instance. So what this does is it's going to say, I would like to see every single window type. And you'll see here, if I hit itemize every instance, we'll see all of them. So it's a small step, but an important step when it comes to just legibility in our drawings and making sure that we just wanted to show how many as a count, how many window 1 types we've got and window 2 types we've got. And if I do that again, it's under the sorting and grouping, hit edit, just click this little checkbox, hit OK, and everything collapses. And now we've just got a couple options, right? So we just got those two windows. What else? What else did I want to talk about? Feel like that was a pretty good summary. An easy one was, if you missed this, an easy one was turning on our shadows in our elevation views. So if you missed that, just to see, show you what that looks like. Bum, bum, bum. Elevation views are 200. Go here. Um, just being mindful of the shadows just help a little bit with drawing legibility. So if I just double click or right click, activate our view, and just down, which one is it? Shadows? Sun path? No, shadows. So this little button down here, shadows on, shadows off, shadows on, shadows off. So the idea here is just making sure that when it comes to the actual setting up of some of these drawings, that we make sure that we've got everything turned on that we want to see. And in this case, we got the shadows turned on. So that's one thing. Last, at least I think it's going to be the last thing. The last thing is for the wall sections. If you miss this step, there was one thing with our level of detail in our drawing. So what I wanted to make sure that we know how to do is set up our drawings to show the insulation, the kind of depth of all of the systems here, rather than show it as what's called a poche or a solid color for these systems. So if I double click or right click, activate the view, if you remember, we've got a couple options here in our little fine, medium, coarse. If I set this to coarse, a couple of us left it like this, which it's just leaving something to the imagination. And I think an easy way to kind of upgrade the fidelity of this drawing is to kind of jump in here. You can either set it to medium, should give us a little bit more detail, and then fine is the kind of most detail. So I like using fine. You guys should use fine for the basically anything greater than 1 to 25. I do know that in my building sections on the reference set, we also had same jam. We also had, if I was to right click, activate, a couple of us left this as course. It would be great just for the purposes of this exercise to make sure we've got it set to fine so we can see kind of all the kind of ins and outs of the overall wall assemblies. This is not to say that this will be the case for any firms that you're working at per se. They might have their own set of drawing standards where certainly you can just leave it as course. So just my personal preference, it may be different in an office environment. So jumping back to our wall sections here, just making sure we've got that medium or fine setup. Don't do coarse. Coarse just eliminates all the detail here. We want to see that as fine. Super small thing. If you did happen to use a shaded view, it's just difficult for how do I say this? Most firms will leave this as a hidden line drawing, and that's it. Don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple. These kind of shaded views and realistic views, keep those to what we call presentation documents. So if you've got, a presentation you're working on, certainly you can use all the color you want and all these fun things. But any section views, any working drawings that we see, we really want to have those as hidden line. I don't think anybody did this, but if you did have it set to wireframe, in this case, it's not going to be too bad, but hidden line is our best bet. So let's make sure we do that. Cool, cool. One last thing. So I did notice a couple of us had the overlay or underlay, I should say, turned on in our roof plans for some reason. This happens. It happens. I'm not sure why, but it does happen. If we leave the underlay on, it can affect the overall drawing legibility, just because I'm thinking about it right now. If I click on our drawing, open it up, and if we remember how to do this, I just want to make sure we know how to turn this off or on. And where are we? So underlay. So making sure if I'm inside the view, so making sure we're right click, activate the view. And now in my properties palette, I've got here under, oh, I've just lost it, underlay. So here under underlay, we've got base level. And there's going to be a little drop down here. Some of us had this turned on, so main level. And that's great when you're trying to draw the roof for sure. Super helpful to see where the edge of our floor is, sorry, the edge of our walls are, so we can get our roof in there properly. But when it comes to drawing legibility, really all we want to see are the roof slopes, the roof, and the parapets. So a simple way to kind of eliminate that, we're just going to drop this down and hit none. Just cleans your drawing up a little bit. Um, that's the last thing. You guys all did a great job. I know that there, again, a couple instances where if you had done the sheets, I was trying to maximize grades. That's why it's really great to see any of you who submitted both. But if you did have the sheets inside your Revit model, I did not take off marks. I appreciate getting the PDFs out. Super helpful for me to do marking. So if you do have questions about the mark you received, we can chat about it. But in terms of on Wednesday, I should say, in terms of the I've lost my train of thought. In terms of the PDFs themselves, I did see there were kind of, oh, that's what I want to say. In terms of PDFs themselves, I did submit comments back to you. So if you wanted to check out any markups that I've done, they're done in Bluebeam in a PDF, and then I sent them back to you. If you didn't provide PDFs, I just tried my best to provide some commentary and a little rubric for how you got your received grade. So hope that all makes sense. If you got questions about the assignment, let me know. I'm going to try and get the midterm exam reviewed for the end of this week, which is of course when marks are due. So marks are due at the end of the week, so I need to get those midterms back to you. Um, yeah, so that's it for this morning. If there are any questions, comments, criticisms, why don't I go ahead and I'll stop recording, or and then you're welcome to stop sharing. I'll stop recording. I didn't see any, whoops, stop recording transcription.